good day, class. Today we're going to discuss about this course, which is professional practice too. So I'm not sure if some of you are my students before in Prof Prac 1. Okay. But okay, so before we go to our main lecture, let's first read the course specifications for Prof Prac 2. So this is from the Commission on Higher Education, or CHED. So professional practice 2 is about administering the regular services of the architect. Architecture is a profession, its ethical norms and office procedures. So the course is designed to provide the students with the basic understanding of the practice of architecture pertaining to the basic services the architect renders within the context of professionalism, ethical conduct, and quality service delivery. So professional practice to class is important, especially for you who are aspiring architects. Okay? Because you have to understand that the practice of architecture is a privilege, not a right. So it is granted by the state. Then you cannot use the term architect unless you have passed the board exam and have met the requirements. Okay, so it's from the Professional Regulatory Board of Architecture, Resolution Number 3, Series of 2010. So it prescribes the standards of professional practice for architects as supplemental implementing rules and regulations of RA 9266, known as the Architecture Act of 2004. Okay, so your UAP document, so it's known as it's supplementing IRR of RA 9266. Okay, so let's skip this part and go into. Okay, so first, let's go to the general definitions. So, state shall refer solely to the national government of the Republic of the Philippines. Okay, so what does this imply, class? It implies that architecture as a profession is something that is regulated by the state or the Republic of the Philippines. So the standards of professional practice is a required document under Section 41 of Republic Act 9266, or the Architecture Act of 2004, and its IRR, or Implementing Rules and Regulations. Then the commission as used for this SPP, the succeeding SPP document shall refer only to the Professional Regulatory Commission duly created under RA number 8981, or the PRC Modernization Act of 2000. Okay, so these are terms, class, that you must familiarize yourselves, because I think this might come up in your board exam someday. Okay, so the Professional Regulatory Commission, class, is the body which regulates the practice of architects in this country. So board as used for the SPP and the succeeding SPP documents shall refer only to the Professional Regulatory Board of Architecture, or PRBOA, duly created under RA number 9266 and its IRR, and under the supervision and administrative control of the Commission. So the architect as used for this SPP and the succeeding SPP document shall refer only to a registered and licensed architect, so a natural person under Philippine law and jurisprudence with a valid certificate of registration and a valid professional identification card, which is renewable a 3-year license for the lawful practice of the state regulated profession of architecture. So depending on the SPP, so the term architect may also refer to the architect of record. The architect of the record, class, is the one who will signs the building plans or building documents. Then you have also the architect in charge of construction, and you have the consulting architect as provided for under RA 9266. So if you remember the lectures for RA 9266, if you have read the law, you can see these terms there. Okay? Then you have number 6, architectural firm as used for this SPP, and the succeeding SPP documents shall refer only to To a juridical person under Philippine law and jurisprudence, duly registered with the Department of Trade and Industry or DTI as a sole proprietorship for individual architecture practice or registered with the Securities and Exchange Commission and with the Professional Regulation Commission, or referred to as Commission in this document. So, as a professional practice or as an architectural corporation, for group architectural practice by RLA is subject to full compliances with Section 37 of RA 9266 and derivative regulations. Then architect and architectural firm may be used interchangeably for some of the succeeding SPP. So these are the things that you must watch out. Then professional, as used for this SPP and the succeeding SPP documents, shall refer only to registered and licensed professionals. So all natural persons under Philippine law and jurisprudence with a valid certificate and a valid professional identification card for the local practice of a state-regulated profession other than architecture. So the client and project proponent may be used interchangeably for this SPP and some of the succeeding SPP. Then the contractor and general contractor shall also mean the contractor or builder and may be used interchangeably in its SPP. Then bid and tender shall mean the same. Okay, so these are some of the acronyms that you must familiarize yourself with. So ADR, Alternative Dispute Resolution. EF, Architectural Firm. ADC, Architectural Design Competition. AICC, Architect in Charge of Construction. AOR, Architect of Record. BPO, Business Process Outsourcing. CA, Consulting Architect. CAC, Code of Ethical Conduct. DOLE, you have Department of Labor and Employment. DTI, the Department of Trade and Industry. FPCA, Filipino Professional Consulting Architects. APOA, is the Integrated and Accredited Professional Organization of Architects. And you have the KPO, Knowledge Process Outsourcing. MOP, Manual of Procedure. PACS, Professional Architectural Consulting Services. PCA, Professional Consulting Architect. PRC, Professional Regulation Commission. Then your PRBOA, the Professional Regulatory Board of Architecture. The SEC, Securities and Exchange Commission. RLA, Registered and Licensed Architect. SPP, Standards of Professional Practice. TSP, that's your Temporary Special Permit. So these are the notes on the general selection of the architect. So this is part of RE 9266, which replaces the 1979 UEP document 208. So for introduction, so there are many ways by which a client can engage the services of an architect. The most appropriate method of selecting an architect will depend on the type and complexity of the project. Okay? So this means last that the practice of architecture, clients will approach you in a variety of ways. Okay? So if you're engaging in residential design or residential buildings, probably clients will go to you by word of mouth or by recommendation from others. Okay? When you are already doing larger projects, for example, if you're successful enough to gain big projects as malls, hospitals, I think you'll be dealing with corporations already. Or sometimes it is done through a design competition. Okay, so it would really depend. Or there are a variety of ways in which the client can engage the architect. Okay? So the scope of services. So the scope of services will depend on the method by which the architect is selected. So there are methods of selection. So direct selection is when uh, is used when undertaking a relatively small project. So the client selects this architect on the basis of. So you do direct selection when the project is just a small project, for example, a residential building or etc. For example, through your reputation, personal business acquaintance or recommendation of a friend. So recommendation of the architect's former client and recommendation of another architect. So recommendation of your former client class, it happens when you perform quite well in the previous project and you have built a good relationship with a former client. So usually this really happens, especially if you have delivered of what is expected from you. Okay? Then sometimes also there's a you will get projects through the recommendation of another architect. So there are some architects class, for example, who no longer accepts residential buildings because they only like to do commercial ones. So when a client approaches them, so they refer it to another architect who does residential design. So it would really depend on your specialization or preference of practice. Then you have a comparative selection, so maybe conducted by committees representing. Okay, so your commission class, it is something which could be done through an invitation wherein your client issues an invitation including the terms of reference for the project, which is based on the design brief prepared by another architect. So the selection committee established by the client may consist of representatives from other state-regulated professions and or the construction industry, as well as persons with related expertise. So for the pre-qualification, so architects and or PRC registered architectural firms submit information regarding their qualification and expertise. Okay, then there's an interview, wherein the architect explains his methodology in translating the plan design requirements of the proposed project. Then there's a verification. So the selection committee may visit buildings designed by the architects and check references such as former clients and financial institutions. So why is it last that the financial institutions will be checked aside from the former clients? Okay. Uh, what really is important in, I think one of the most important qualities a firm or an architect should have, class, is that should have a good financial reputation and integrity. Okay, so it means that when a client approaches you and wants you to build something for them and it's going to be worth a few millions, then you are going to utilize every penny of the client's money to build that structure. Okay, so that's the meaning of integrity. So it doesn't mean that when the client pays you the down payment, so I think it's going to be a big sum of money that you're going to buy a new car or do some stuff. Always remember that you are a professional, then the client will trust you with that money. Okay, so you have to be really financially literate plus if you want to succeed, okay, in our profession. Then it's going to evaluation and ranking. So the selection committee may adapt its own procedure in evaluating the entries and recommending the most capable firm. Then there's a negotiation wherein the architect explains to the client the scope of services and the architect's fee as prescribed under the architect's guidelines. So I think the negotiation phase happens if there's or you're already selected. Of course, you're going to discuss, class, the fee, the structure of your fee to your client based on the architect's guidelines, which we will discuss in detail in this course. Okay? Then there's also what you call an architectural design competition. Okay? So I think it has more disadvantages than advantages. So one of the things that you must be careful of is that some clients may seek free services under the guise of a design competition. So it means that they're going to gather different ideas of different architects, then they're going to do their project on their own. Okay? So just be careful. Then always remember, class, that Our works as architects, they are protected by copyright law. Then they're also protected by Republic Act 9266. Then the procedure, so competition should be conducted with the assistance of the IAPOA or the UAP, so in accordance with the architect's guidelines. And the participants, so you have of course your sponsor or client, just a natural or juridical person. Juridical person means it could be a firm or corporation. Then the competitors, of course, you have the Filipino registered licensed architects, and of course some foreign architects who has secured a temporary special permit from the PRC and also a work permit from the WOLE. Then you have here a professional advisor. Then of course a jury composed of an architect and a competition sponsor or client. Then the methods of compensation class will be subject to the respective type of services covered under the UAP documents presented here. Okay, so next meeting class, we're going to discuss in detail SPP document 201. For this week's activity, please refer to our group page in Facebook. So I'm going to write there what will be your assignment for this week. Okay. So class, I hope class that I think that you had an idea, a general idea of what our professional practice is. Okay, because it's really important, especially if you desire to establish your own firms and become successful. Okay, so see you next next meeting and stay safe always.